Welcome to MTG Arena Theory. In this video, we're going to go over deck types and styles. We're going to go over the four major archetypes available in Magic. We're going to talk about when they're good, when they're bad, what's strong against them, what's weak against them, and what sort of the different play styles you need for each deck type. Before we can get into the archetypes, though, we need to go over the types of plays that you can make in Magic. And in general, there is three types of plays that you can make. First is a threat. Threats put pressure on the opponent. If they go unanswered, they will win you the game by themselves. The opposite of a threat is an answer. These deal with threat cards, and they're used to not lose the game. The other type of play that you can make is what's called a tempo play. A tempo play is to temporarily answer a threat. So when you unsummon a creature that's attacking in at you, you haven't really permanently dealt with it, but the opponent gets the creature back in their hand, and then they have to replay it, and you get a time advantage because of that. You make the game go longer, so that's a tempo play. The other kind of tempo play that you can use is to use an answer to nullify your opponent's answer. So if they go to lightning strike your merfolk and you use a dive down to give the merfolk hexproof, you're nullifying their answer and you're gaining tempo because basically they didn't do anything that turn because you've nullified their action for the turn. So with those in mind, let's now talk about, there's two axes that the game can be played on. The first of which is aggressive versus reactive. So your deck can be either, your deck or play style can either be aggressive or reactive. Aggressive meaning you're trying to finish the game quickly. You're trying to apply pressure to the opponent using your threats. You're trying to be mana efficient and playing multiple threats per turn. And lastly, you're using tempo to win quickly. The other side of this is being reactive. You're trying to make the game go long. You're using answers for the opponent's threats. You're playing more mana expensive but better threats. And you're using tempo to delay the opponent into the long game. The other axis that the game can be played on is fair versus unfair. So what do we mean by that? Fair, you're playing threats to the board. So you're playing creatures or planeswalkers or enchantments onto the battlefield where they can be interacted with. You're also using incremental advantage to win the game. So you're trying to sort of nickel and dime your way to the win. Your threats have multiple widely used answers, so your threats are vulnerable. And your answers, you use one-for-one answers against your opponents. Now, unfair is you play only very difficult to answer threats to the board. You're using a single card or a combination of cards to drastically swing the momentum of the game. Your threats have very specific and narrow answers, so they're hard to deal with. And you use sweeper effects, using a single answer to deal with multiple threats of your opponent. So when you put this onto sort of a grid, you having fair over on the left and then unfair on the right and aggressive at the top and reactive on the bottom, you come out with the four major archetypes in Magic. So your fair aggressive strategies are aggro, your aggressive unfair strategies are combo, your unfair reactive strategies are control, and your reactive fair strategies are mid-range. So in general, you're very good against the archetype that's clockwise to you. So aggro usually is best against combo. Combo is usually best against control. Control is usually best against mid-range, and mid-range is usually best against aggro. Now this isn't always true, but in the very general case, that's the general rule of thumb. Is that's what of how things go. So let's talk specifically about the strategies. First, aggro. You're trying to end the game quickly by overloading the opponent's answers. You're playing mana-efficient threats to the board. You're using your own answers to nullify the opponent's answers or to deal with the opponent's bigger threats. The strategy is weak when mana-efficient sweepers, so 4 mana or less, are being played. The sweeper effects deal with your threats, and when mid-range decks are popular. The strategy is strong when only expensive sweeper effects, 5 or more, are being played, or maybe even no sweeper effects. Only narrow sweeper effects are being played, and they don't deal with your threats. So, for example, sometimes there's sweepers available that destroy all token creatures, for example. But if you're not playing a token strategy, then that doesn't hit you, so you don't care about it. The other time that it's strong is when combo decks are popular, because you can normally go underneath the combo decks and kill them before they're able to combo off. So examples are red deck wins, mono blue flyers, and mono green stompy. These are all 3 of these are deck types that you can find in MTG Arena right now, and they're all very good at this point. The next deck archetype that we're going to talk about is combo. You're trying to end the game as quickly as possible using difficult to answer threats. You're using multiple cards together to generate a huge in-game advantage. You're using your own answers to buy time until you can combo off. The strategy is weak when the combo is easily interacted with and answers are being played in decks. It's also weak when the combo takes a long time to set up, and when aggro decks are popular. The strategy is strong when answers for the combo are generally not played. The combo is quick to assemble and therefore gets underneath the answers that are available, and when control decks are popular. An example of in MTG Arena is the blue-red God-Pharaoh's Gift deck that uses God-Pharaoh's Gift and Combat Celebrants to do multiple attack steps within one turn. The next deck archetype that we have is control. So you're trying in control to play a long game by answering opponent's threats with your answers. You're using sweeper effects to answer multiple threats with one card. You're playing the very best threats in the format. The strategy is weak when answers are narrow. The top-end threats are not much better than the mana-efficient threats, and when combo decks are popular. The strategy is strong when answers are broad, top-end threats are much better than mana-efficient threats, and when mid-range decks are popular. Examples of this are the blue-white control lists that play Teferi and Karn, and then the blue-black control lists that play Scarab God. The decks that I would not consider to be control, though, are the blue-white lists that play Wrath Capuchin, and then play a bunch of other creatures. That's more of a mid-range deck, which we'll go into next. The last style of deck is mid-range. In mid-range, how we play is very matchup dependent. Against aggro, we're trying to make it go to a long game, where we're trying to answer their early threats, and then we outclass their threats with our bigger threats. In the control matchup, we're trying to get to the board quickly and trying to be as aggressive as we can and trying to kill them as fast as we can, because they have the better answers in the matchup. In the against combo, it really depends on how vulnerable the combo is, whether we can interact with the combo. If we can, we may take a more controlling line, and if not, then we'll take a very aggressive line. We use multiple different answers to deal with opponents' threats. We play slightly larger threats than the aggro decks in the format. The strategy is weak when mana-efficient answers deal with your threats. It's also weak when mana-efficient sweepers hit your threats, and when control decks are popular. The strategy is strong when mana-efficient answers do not deal with your threats, and mana-efficient sweepers do not hit your threats, and also when aggro decks are popular. Examples of these decks in MTG Arena are the Black-White Knights deck and the Red-Green Dinosaurs deck. Both of those play slightly bigger or better threats at each of the mana slots, and are able to deal with aggro fairly well, but again are vulnerable to the sweepers available to control. So just to review, you can play a fair, unfair game, aggressive or reactive game, and these are sort of continuums, right? It's not like you have to be like way out. If you're aggressive, you have to be like very aggressive, and if you're unfair, you have to be very unfair. You can be just slightly unfair and very aggressive, or you can be slightly unfair and very reactive, or just slightly reactive. These are continuums where the decks will be, and depending on where you are on the continuum is how you'll interact with the other decks in the format. So this is just a way of thinking about where you're situated in the format and how you should be playing against the other decks in the format. So if you plot yourself on here and then you plot the deck you're playing against, you have an idea of how you should be playing in that matchup. Maybe it also gives you an idea of how you want to sideboard in the matchup, and in general, it just gives you it's just a good way to think about it in when you're building your deck, when you're playing your deck. Thank you for watching the video. If you like the content, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them below. You can also follow me on Twitch at twitch.tv/NUS53TV. I stream there every weekday. So if you want more content, that's an easy place that you can come and find me. All right. Thanks again for watching.